Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of the LSX World Congress 2021. Delighted to be joined this morning by a panel discussing out-licensing and deal making in China. Today is our Partnerships and Deal Making Day, and so yesterday our focus was on capital markets and investment. But what remains today, as what I see as one of the most exciting silver linings of the virtual world, is our ability to bring together a much sort of wider geography of both attendees, speakers, and indeed in this case, Moderator, with Brian joining us from China, and looking forward to a fantastic discussion to kick us off. Please do keep the conversation going in the Q&A and chat functions on the right-hand side of the video. We'll get to as many of the questions throughout the panel and at the end of the panel as we can, and indeed throughout the rest of the event. But without further ado, delighted to hand you over to our moderator for this morning's discussion, Briang Yang. Brian, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this panel discussion. I'm Briang Yang, Senior Editor for Informa Pharma Intelligence. Informa Pharma Intelligence is a publication leading a publication for industry of pharma, biotech, and medical device. We have a Scrip, Pink Sheet, and MedTech Insight, and others. I'm so glad to have a distinct panel joining us today to discuss the deal making in China. As you all know, deal making is getting huge in these days. However, it also has a lot of challenges. Particularly since 2020, we have a period of COVID-19, which make deal making not only in China, but elsewhere very challenging. However, China has emerged as strong and also earlier from this global pandemic. How biotech companies do deal making in this challenging environment? And today we're gonna dive into some more details. First, I would like to introduce our panelists from 3 leading Chinese biotech companies: Beigene, Simcere, and Innovent Bio. First, let me hand over to Guillaume, who is from Beigene.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Guillaume Vignon. I'm the Global Head of Business Development at Beigene, and I'm based in Basel, Switzerland. So thanks a lot for having me on the panel today. Thanks to the organizer. Thanks, Brian, for moderating. And do you want me to introduce in few words Beigene? So Beigene is a global, biotech, with presence in the US, in Europe, and China. Beigene is commercializing several products in China. So Brukinsa, BTK inhibitor, the PD-1 inhibitor, tislelizumab, and also some products that are being acquired through partnerships. So that's the purpose of the discussion today, to talk about this type of deals. So we are commercializing 3 products that are coming from the collaboration with Amgen, Xgeva, Kyprolis, and we are also commercializing products from the Celgene collaboration, BMS collaboration, so Vidaza, Revlimid, and Abraxane. We are in the US commercial. We are commercializing Brukinsa, or BTK inhibitor, and we have global capabilities from large-scale manufacturing in China and research, clinical development worldwide, and of course commercial. So again, pleasure to be on this panel to discuss about deal making.
Thank you. Yuehua from Simcere, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Brian, for the invitation and introduction. So hello, everyone. I'm Yuehua Cong, representing Simcere Pharmaceutical Group, one of the top 10 innovative pharmaceutical enterprises in China. And Simcere is rapidly actually transforming itself into a R&D innovation-driven organization, with more than half of our revenues actually last year was generated from our innovative products. Together with 3 innovation centers and our end-to-end capabilities, we focus mainly in 3 therapeutic areas, that is oncology, autoimmune, and CNS disorders. I have been with Simcere for slightly over 3 years after establishing the European presence and leading our BD and investment activities here. I just want to one extra sentence is I'm a devotee to borderless scientific and technology advancement and feel really privileged to have the opportunity to champion European innovations in front of Chinese partners as well. So I'm really honored to be here with you today.
Thank you. Maria from Innovent Bio, please.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maria Dahl. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Innovent Biologics in Europe. Innovent Biologics is a global biopharmaceutical company headquartered in Suzhou in China, but now with presence also in the United States, in San Francisco, and as of September last year in London in the United Kingdom. We have at this point 4 marketed products in oncology and immunology, plus a very rich pipeline in really innovative drugs, so best-in-class, first-in-class drugs. So while we started out primarily as a biosimilars business, we are now really moving to the next generation, first-in-class, best-in-class. And everything we do is about quality and bringing quality medicines which are affordable to patients. And everything I will say today will have that at the core of the message. And that's where business development comes in. And this panel is so important today that we all work together to really make sure this is what we achieve at the end as an ecosystem and a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we have 3 leading R&D based pharmaceutical biotech companies from China, let me start just from recent deals. As we all say, the JP Morgan in 2021, relatively quiet, but however, there's one big deal coming from Beigene with Novartis in regarding to the PD-1 tezolizumab from, so this is a PD-1 antibody, and the deal was over 2.2 total billion US dollars. So let me start from this deal. If you can, could you just give us some reasoning behind the deal, how you think this PD-1 is really promising for pharma companies in the West to commercialize outside China?
Absolutely, yes. It's a good intro to the rest of the panel discussion. So first of all, we are very happy to have made some quite big announcements for a rather otherwise quiet JP Morgan. So that was, you know, we are delighted, of course, with that. We're also delighted to have attracted Novartis as a partner. You know, the space of PD-1 is extremely competitive. You have very well-established players. And I think this deal really highlights, beyond the financials, also the strategic intent. And the strategic intent is really to bring this medicine to as many patients as possible. And we realize that while we believe we have a differentiated PD-1 inhibitor, this is a race, and that would really require a big pharma browser to help us, you know, to commercialize and develop further beyond what we have been able to do, especially if you think about, you know, combinations and being able to do more and joining forces with Novartis to do more from that perspective. I think for us, the other angle was to find a partner with whom we can learn from when it comes to commercialization in major markets. So I've already alluded in the introduction to the fact that we have already a US commercial infrastructure. We are commercializing Brukinsa, our BTK inhibitor, in the US. And when it comes to establish, you know, further the presence in the US, we thought that the co-detailing aspect that we have into the collaboration in the US, North America, was extremely useful for us to learn and be able to, you know, build these capabilities further in this territory. So I think it's highlighting, you know, a good example of why usually you do deals. You do deals for the financials, but also to build capabilities or acquire capabilities. So here again, the strategic intent was accelerate the combinations efforts with checkpoint. That's basically where the next wave of interesting combinations are coming into play. And for us also to be able to tap into the commercial expertise in Europe, Japan, and in North America of a large pharma, still being able to build alongside our own infrastructure in solid tumor in the US.
Thank you. If you can go to the next question to Maria, what comes to your mind when you think about 2020 deal making? If you can tap into your deal with Eli Lilly, that would be also very helpful. What are some observations coming to your mind?
No, I'd be delighted to, and I would actually like to also build on a point, Guillaume. I think you made it so well. That deal making is about the financials, but also really capabilities and creating win-win. I think you said it very well. And coming back to my opening point about what Innovent is about, really quality medicines, affordable to patients, and innovation, really like my fellow colleagues on this panel, we want to create innovation. This is what has driven really all the deals we've done. I'll talk about the Eli Lilly deal in a moment, but just say that the type of deals we do characteristics of, I think, a trend we see in the industry in general in China is it's going from beyond just being acquiring rights in China to products from non-China companies, or having a non-China companies taking our products global to much wider scope of the type of deals we do. So I'll give you a few examples of that. But starting with the Eli Lilly deal, yes, it's absolutely a key deal for Innovent. And coming back to Guillaume's point about that deal with Novartis, Innovent, of course, we were the first to strike a deal with our PD-1 monoclonal antibody with a multinational pharma company several years ago. And just like Beigene, we clearly appreciate the value there is having these kind of partnerships. I think the multinationals appreciate the speed with which Innovent operates. We really have really unprecedented speed of execution in clinical development for our products. But likewise, we appreciate what they can bring to the table outside China as we build our global business and with their capabilities. So in terms of the deal with Eli Lilly, it is for us, the key purpose is to really make sure that our sintilimab PD-1 antibody reaches the market outside China, because it is a very high quality molecule and which clearly has demonstrated significant benefits in the clinic. Just for those who don't know it, sintilimab was originally approved for refractory non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And today, actually, I'm very pleased to announce, and as you probably have seen, we did achieve the approval also for non-squamous lung cancer first line, which is a really key breakthrough based on the Orient 11 data. So the deal with Eli Lilly was really about making sure that this clearly very high quality molecule, which was approved in China already 2 years ago, really also reaches the global markets. In terms of other deals we've done, let's go beyond this type of deals. We have both done deals where we're really interested in reaching innovation on a global scale. So I'll just mention a few examples of that. We did a very large deal with Roche, which was announced in June, and about some very early research technology, where we will basically collaborate access to some of the Roche platforms, and which we will develop, and they will have certain options to take the products forward. So this is, again, sort of a different type of deal, very different from the Lilly type of deal, which is about assets, products, making sure they reach non-China. The Roche deal is as different as it can be, in the sense that this is an early stage, it's a global rights to Innovent, and it's really a collaboration. So that's sort of at the other end of the spectrum, and I think we'll see more of these type of deals going forward as well. We have also done deals just where we have sort of typical in-licensing deal, where we have acquired rights in China from a small biotech company, and we did a deal with Elector about their antibody to SIRP alpha, and that's sort of more of a standard type of deal. And we also do clinical collaborations. But to summarize what I will say about Innovent types of deals, yes, we definitely do the big pharma deals like the Eli Lilly deal, which has brought and continues to bring a lot of value for us as a business in terms of making sure our products reaches markets outside China. But we increasingly do, and I see that's also where I see the China ecosystem going. Deals would go far beyond that, right? Global rights, standard clinical collaborations, and we can talk more about that later. More China-China collaborations, which I really look forward to being part of. As you know, we have Innovent has a collaboration with Hutchison, which we entered into 2018. Another fantastic example of a Chinese innovative company, where we entered with a collaboration around one product, expanded in 2019, and it's been very productive collaboration. So we'll see more of that as a new trend. And I think the very last thing I'll say before I hand over to Yuehua is, and forgive me for saying that as I'm head of Europe for Innovent, is Innovent has also started doing deals with Europe, and you will see a lot more of that going forward. And this is, of course, a London-based conference. London is our European headquarter, and same case for Yuehua at Simcere. And we picked the United Kingdom because it's such a center of innovation, and biotech pharma community is fantastic, right? We started doing a deal last year with University of Zurich about HER2 antibodies, and Brian, this deal is also really a first for Innovent, really, in terms of access to European research. And watch this space. You will see much more of this going forward. We're in Europe now, and we really plan to collaborate with Europe. And thanks to those in the audience for hearing this message.
Thank you, Maria. I'll get more into later. Let's go to Yuehua for Simcere's. I really want if you can have some very observations from 2020 for deal making.
Sure, of course. So actually, I really want to thank Maria and Guillaume for painting the background so well. And from Simcere's perspective, 2020 is actually a very interesting, challenging, yet fruitful year. In terms of deal making, actually, we do have quite a few deals, executed in 2020. And falling in the buckets that Maria just actually laid out. So there are deals that are between what we strike between with Chinese partners, such as the PD-L1 sub-Q injectables deals that we have done with SLD. And that's a very interesting collaboration. And in terms of, international collaboration and have late stage asset coming into China and help us, to serve the patient with the best in class, first in class therapeutics, we obviously, have really the good opportunity to work with G1 Therapeutics as well as Aramix. So all those actually give a lot of examples about, what Simcere is looking for. But fundamentally, I totally agree with what Guillaume and Maria just mentioned. Deal making is when we do the announcement, it's like, putting out the wedding photos outside, but actually it's all about getting married and live happily ever after if possible. So complementary, capabilities and helping both sides to build even stronger, and even stronger synergy and strategically aligned with what both companies actually looking for and moving forward. That's what we are looking for actually. And in terms of, 2020, we are so grateful that we have so many, outstanding partners willing to work with us. And we look forward to see 2021, the trend will carry on. With Simcere being now a public company, I think you are going to see more and more announcement in terms of our partnerships.
Mm. Thank you, Yuehua. I was going to mention that you guys went public quite a big way in China. So that's something I'm sure you have more to announce in the future. Speaking of challenges, I really think that one of the obvious challenges for Chinese companies, biopharma companies, is the products. How do you convince the investors outside the companies about your the quality or the clinical data? So I think that's in the past there's some thing about that, but obviously we have overcome a lot in terms of that. If you can give us some what the biggest challenge for a Chinese company in terms of doing deals. Let's start from Yuehua.
Sure, thank you. I don't know where I heard this term, people call it FUD. Fear, uncertainty, difficulty, and obviously, what is the other D? So basically, there are some challenges. I need to be completely, open. But at the same time, from our perspective, we don't necessarily see them as a challenge. We see them as both sides trying to find alignment if possible. It's almost like, dancing in pair. The timing has to be right, the time that we want that asset and the other party, if it's not ready, so it takes a lot of convincing. The tempo has to be right. The execution of the deal is one thing, but execution of clinical collaboration, execution of, regulatory interaction, it all matters, and both sides has to actually tangle well together, so to speak. And obviously the style, what we find, very fundamental to us is being able to offer affordable drugs to Chinese patients, ideally best in class, first in class, as Maria keep on mentioning, affordable drugs to patients. So the manufacturer, if the drug is imported, then what about the pricing? So there are a lot of things actually is playing in terms of this kind of interaction. I don't necessarily see them as a hurdle or difficulties. I do see them as an interesting exercise that both sides will religiously and diligently working on together. But so far, we have been blessed with all those, very keen partners wanting to embrace China market and wanting to, and Simcere equally wanting to embrace, international market. So we are lucky enough to overcome all those. Just over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, you brought up two interesting aspects. One is license out or more license in. So obviously there are two aspects to this question. So Maria, hand over to you. I think one we look at is what challenges or hurdles for Chinese biotech to do really deals.
Yeah, and delighted to, and I'll build on what you have said, and actually start with sort of a positive spin. I think, and that's really also how what you flag, Yuehua, is I think overall there are challenges, but there are probably not as many as many may think, right? I think the working in a China company and doing business development within a Chinese company, I think in many ways are not that different from if you work in another company, right? So I think what I've been so impressed to see at Innovent, and I expect to be the same in the companies of my colleagues, is there's a very high level of understanding in the Chinese companies themselves at this point about the world outside China and how multinationals and biotech outside China function. So I'll really start, that is a very positive way. And I also really have not as of yet really seen from the outside, sort of non-China companies we're dealing with, the multinationals, haven't really sensed any kind of specific issues in terms of lack of understanding on what a Chinese company can offer. Having said that, I'd say maybe just three things. Just start in terms of the challenges is, of course, as the overall was so geopolitical, right? And sort of unfortunate that a lack of understanding in some quarters of what different countries offer and are capable of doing. I blessed to say that I think in Europe, we have been operating very smoothly, and so far from Innovent, we haven't encountered any difficulties. But it's just something we hope will continue to improve and globally understand the understanding of what China is as a country, what amazing people it is, right? And what the industry is offering. I hope that will continue to evolve in a positive way. Then maybe moving on another challenge, which is sort of in the China ecosystem. And it's just something I think we all need to be aware of. And coming back to the point Guillaume made at the very beginning about capabilities, right? I think as an industry and as clearly there is cash around, and that's been fantastically helpful for our industry, that there are investors really willing to take risk. And you know, in the case of Innovent, we started with $5 million in 2011, right? And with some fantastic investors, Fidelity and Lily Asia Ventures came in the next round, public 2018. So there's cash around and really fantastic investors. But I think we also, coming back to Guillaume's point about capabilities, the BD discussion has to be beyond just that, right? So I think it's something to keep an eye on as a community, that we make sure that even in a competitive environment where we compete for assets, that rationality keeps having a place, right? So that is important. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't do so. I think it's just something as any industry which evolves rapidly, many new players, is always something to keep an eye on. And particularly if you, at the end goal is at the end of the day, you want to make affordable medicines to patients, right? You may want to think of the right balance between incentivize financially people to be in the industry and want to do deals, but also not making sure that all dollars go to upfronts, rather as opposed to maybe making sure the agents are developed and get them to the market. So the third challenge, or I would just point to, let's just sort of for some of us, and interesting to hear your view, Guillaume, is when you work in a Chinese company and in the BD function, and you just recognize the enormous talent there is within your organization, and the track record, what they have done, and just mind-boggling. Then how do you then convey this to the partner you speak to, right? And particularly as there are inevitably different levels of English speaking in the team, right? And in partnering meetings, how do you make sure that the fact that somebody, just by the fact that the person doesn't master the English language, does not impact the overall message to convey that this is a really capable team? And that comes back to your points also about the deals we do are for the long run, right? You know, you sign the dotted line and then you work with a company for 20 years. So the whole partnering discussion is about convincing the other party that your team is really a high-performing, capable team. And while 80%, 90% maybe has nothing to do with language, clearly I think we, as working with a lot of outstanding Chinese colleagues, at times we need to figure out a way to make sure that they really, in terms of Chinese speaking entities, convey really all their capabilities. So basically, as I summarize, there's three areas, right? The overall global geopolitical. I think then the second one is sort of as a Chinese ecosystem. Let's just make sure we stay rational, right? And the third is just more the day-to-day, really language, the small nitty-gritty, right?
And Maria, if I can, ping on what you said, it's difficult to add on all of those great points. I would say one of the challenge, which is an opportunity, is to be able to explain how basically access to patients in China and the innovation landscape in China is, deeply and profoundly impacting the entire industry. So if you think about, now the ability of include China in the global clinical development scheme is of great benefit. And you see emerging, companies in China who are able to recruit in China I think one of the challenge is still to get this message out there when you interact with some, let's say, especially biotech or even large pharma, to explain actually, you have capabilities to help accelerate clinical development. I think, when I started at Beigene 3 years ago, the word in the circuit was, oh, let's partner China rights, let's get a very nice non-dilutive upfront, and let them do whatever they want in China. We don't understand China, we don't want to have anything to do with this. And I think over the year, this type of deal have faded away. This is not just about commercializing the innovation into China. This is also leveraging on the innovative landscape in China and capabilities that people have built in China. And in the case of Beigene, beyond just China, on a global scale, to contribute to the development of the science, the development of the program. So if you think about it, this is a bit new, right? I mean, if you're in the biotech, this is your program, you would accept this message maybe coming from a large pharma who has well-known clinical development capabilities. But in our case, when we interact with biotech, actually we have decent size of clinical development, regulatory, manufacturing, and we can, in most of the cases, significantly help even large pharma to accelerate clinical development. So, the conversation changed from just offloading China rights into a more strategic type of a discussion, which is how can we leverage strengths on both sides to basically, do a broader program or move faster in the current clinical development paths. And I think this is new, and that requires some thinking. But if you look at all of the deals we've done at Beigene, most of those deals have this element of contributing as part of a co-development and helping the program to move faster and more broadly in the clinic. This is not just about approval in China. The second challenge is explain the how innovative and fast-paced China environment is. So if you really want to capture the commercial opportunities, you need to be able to react quickly. And I think in most of the cases, this is at speed that is unprecedented. Even to the US, this is a very different type of a speed. And maybe the third challenge that we have not talked about is while you need to spend a lot of time upfront with your partner, prospective partner, to think about how are you going on both sides to leverage your strengths to help the program moving along in the clinical development and ensure commercial success in the end. Ideally, you would do that face-to-face. And in a new world where you can't travel, going back to this kind of trust issue that Maria alluded to, it's harder because you don't have enough time to spend with the prospective partner. The prospective partner cannot come to see you on site and be educated about China. And I think that's another set of challenges. You rely on just Zoom, and this is quite efficient, but in most of the cases it's harder to create this trust element that is so important in deal making. I mean, you can have always a beautiful conversation, but in the end you do a deal with people that you trust in a format that you think is the best for your program. So that's harder to have those conversations over Zoom. Let's face the truth. And this being said, everyone has done deals in 2020 despite those challenges. But this is harder.
Okay, I guess we have a touch upon a couple of issues here, not only the challenges for 2020, but also some execution I saw we have touched upon. However, there is one particular detail to this deal making is valuation. Before when they talk about the China deal making, is all about the follow-on, not about upfront. But now we saw their upfront is really coming up really big numbers here. So again, that is something really notable for the 2020 deals, particularly going forward. And also, so I was just wondering if Yuehua, if you can give us what you think the evolution in terms of the valuation of deals in terms of deal making.
Sure. I can share some of my thoughts, and obviously I welcome you to challenge mine. So first of all, according to all those reports that we can easily get access nowadays, talking about all the deals and record disclose the deal values, indeed, the value actually goes up, especially the upfront. And I want to actually pause here and reflect, because a lot of deal making, there is a delay effect, if I may say. You will find actually most of deal are done, especially for this cross-border deal between China and external partners, focusing on oncology, and a lot of the upfront are extremely hefty and so on and so forth. But when you're actually looking at oncology computations in China, it's very intense outside China as well. So I think there will be a delay effect for people to recognize in the end, when I have paid this much to this, and am I going to actually offer a really affordable best therapeutics to patients, to the China patients? I think these questions need to be answered quite sincerely by every, deal-making organizations. And now, but coming back to this point, there are also some organizations, when they actually trying to do deals, they want to fill their pipeline and they want to prepare themselves for IPO. And when they do IPO, it all comes to, objective. So why do you do deals, and why do you actually, how long you want to hold on this asset, whether you are going to be the one manufacturer, do clinical trials and offer to the patient, or whether expecting someone to take the asset and actually do the commercialization in China. So that's one thought I put here. I don't want to lay out answers because different people would have different answers to this, I'm sure. But at the same time, I think the deal volumes and also the deal value both goes up. It is the trend. And that just to say that not only for in-licensing, but also for out-licensing. For 2021, I would say you are going to see more and more China innovation coming to age, from companies such as, my colleagues here. So you are going to see, potentially also quite sizable deals for China out-licensing as well. I pause here, and I know because we don't have much time, I want to make sure that Guillaume and Maria would share their, very valuable insights as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I may maybe add to what you just said, definitely the valuation is increasing and the volume of deal is increasing. But I think, and Maria alluded to that already, the type of deal is also changing. And in the past, it was all about getting commercial assets that have not yet been approved in China for regulatory reasons. And bring them to this innovation to patients in China. And to a certain extent, the gold rush is over, and people are now trying to build a more robust set of a pipeline, and therefore are trying to access innovation, let's say earlier. And you see many deals at phase 1, even preclinical stage, which traditionally the people for China type of a deal we're not doing. So I think the type of deal is changing. You see a lot of creativity as well in the deal making. I mean, people paying with equity, not just with cash up front, bringing co-development as part of the deal, doing option deals, doing deals with equity. And that's in the case of Beigene, we have many examples of doing bespoke deals to make sure that actually we mirror and support the science instead of imposing a deal template on people and on programs. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of creativity, and I think going earlier is the trend, and I assume that we're going to see more deals this year going early. We've mentioned in the case of Beigene the big collaboration with Novartis, and we have big collaboration with Celgene and Amgen, but we do plenty of those earlier phase 1, early phase 2 collaborations. I mean, we even invested in equity in two companies, Leap and Strand more recently in the space of mRNA. So this is, I think, the new trend that, you know, innovation is happening everywhere. It's happening in China a lot, and we didn't talk about that, but, you know, a couple of remarkable examples of collaborations done on China innovations reaching the West. I'm thinking about our colleagues at IMAB or, you know, Zhongshu also. So, you know, it's much more dynamic. It's not just one way, it's a two-way street. So I think in terms of trend, a lot of innovation coming from China, reaching, you know, global. And I think this is a trend where this is unstoppable. More PhD, you know, people and medical doctors are in China nowadays. So we should, and access to capital, and you know, the landscape is favorable to innovation. So more and more innovation coming from that perspective, therefore more collaboration from that angle.
I just from our perspective, I agree with everything you just said, Guillaume, and also Yuehua. And I mean, while we do observe, coming back to the point about sort of valuations and increasing, what we do observe that there are certain players in the industry, but that has always been the case, and not just in China. It's also been the case outside China, that there are players which seems to have a different level of risk appetite, and sometimes it is not entirely clear how they get to the conclusion that a certain amount is the appropriate amount to pay. But again, that is their right to do so if their board and their shareholders agree with this level of risk they're taking and their assessment of the asset. So I think we always have to recognize, as an industry, there are players who are more willing to take risk than others, and sometimes, and come back to the point I made before about rationality, it may not be clear what is actually the basis for the payments made. And what I think is very encouraging, and as Guillaume said so well, is that we see increasingly these very tailor-made and you said like bespoke deals Guillaume referred to, and where it's really about creating win-win, looking at what are the true value inflection points here, right? And how can we together get to these, right? How can we leverage your capabilities? How can you leverage ours, right? Of course, I'm not trying in any way to diminish the importance of the commitment and upfront payment can illustrate. And I know some kinds also, for if you do enter into a deal with a smaller company, be essential for the company to even deliver its obligations under the deal in question, right? Which is something we must not forget. But having said that, in terms of the valuations, I am fairly. I have faith in the market that apart from some outliers, and as I said before, which we'll always see, who has a very different level of risk appetite, I think overall the market functions well. And you see, as both Yuehua and Guillaume said, deals which are really structured, not according to just one template, you know, upfront, milestone, royalty, and then try to look in whatever database you have, what are the benchmarks, but really driven around how can we increase the pie together by working together, right? And what are the key value drivers and value inflection points? And you know, I'm pleased to say, and it sounds like my colleagues here on the panel say the same, you know, I think most of the parties outside China, they do appreciate the complexity which, you know, Guillaume referred to in China, and what we as Chinese players can bring to the table through our track record in terms of helping address that, right? So overall, I'm very optimistic and upbeat on the future. And I would just say, as a message to all listening here, yes, we will keep seeing these headlines about large upfronts, and sometimes we will understand why, other times we won't. This is how our industry has always been. It's the right of everyone to have their own risk willingness, right? That's what makes it so exciting. But I think overall it is about win-win. And as I said at the very beginning, getting quality, innovative medicines to patients, and these medicines should be affordable, right?
Yeah.
Yes, great. I guess before I open the floor to questions, I want to just do a little bit summarize what we have come to now. I think we all talked about the opportunities, China's innovation, and then coming to age, and also lots of talents, big pool of patients, and also the clinical studies really getting up to speed and also regulatory reform we have not touched upon, but really has been speed up a lot as far as I can say in terms of new drug approvals and clinical trial approvals. So the sheer number and also speed has been really something we cannot ignore. And also we talk about the challenges of, particularly in terms of competitiveness of this cancer drugs, PD-1, also their cell therapies. We have not talked about CAR T cells, also really something is really competitive right now in China. I just want to spend maybe just quickly, if you can give us something talking about the opportunities for deal making in China going forward. What are some areas you are looking at, not only in oncology, but also other areas, immunology, for example, or even real conditions, if you are looking at what are some opportunities for deal making and what are you going to forward in 2021? Start from clockwise.
Sure. I don't know, from the viewer perspective, from our perspective. So I will actually volunteer to be the first one to talk about the opportunity. So actually, Simcere therapeutic area does go beyond oncology, and we spend quite a lot of resource and efforts in terms of building up our autoimmune pipeline as well as CNS pipeline. And we also have a little bit, portfolios in infectious disease and cardiovascular disease. So literally just to serve the Chinese patient as much as we can, and hopefully eventually global patients as well. In terms of opportunity, I observe, yes, I actually is the topic that excites me a lot, because I think everyone knows the fundamental that we are enter into an aging society globally, but China quite rapidly. And then there will be, a kind of a cliff, almost like they were saying 2040, the aging population will actually be dramatically higher due to the policies that we had many years ago. So obviously there is a kind of beyond what Simcere is actually doing, there is also, aging related indications. I would encourage, audience or anyone's working in this field to embrace the China market, not necessarily Simcere, but just, to embrace the market and consider how am I going to prepare myself to, to tap into such a big market. That's one thing. And another thing is actually we do see a lot of, early diagnosis, especially, in terms of cancer, that would simply change the landscape of cancer treatment as well. So you see, for example, the diagnosis company Grail being acquired by Illumina that offers, early detection of a different type of oncology indications. That's one direction to encourage companies to consider, that direction as well. And obviously autoimmune immunology are the other side of the coin of oncology. And there are a lot of, indications you can tap into, but autoimmune, it has so many small sub-indications underneath that. So the devil is really in the details. So for anyone who would consider, to tap into the large, the second large pharmaceutical market, and hopefully, by 2030, it will be the largest, I would probably offer just three things. One is check on the fundamentals. Fundamentals being the policies that Brian, you just lay out, in terms of regulatory reform. And the second point is actually check on the timing, because how fast you can move, how fast you can, you are ready to engage in a partnership. The third one, obviously, are the details. So I will pause here and hand over to you.
Want me to pick up?
Maria, before you, I just wonder if you can talk about a little bit about the reimbursement, because your PD-1 is just reimbursed, actually the first reimbursed PD-1 in China. So it's
no, that's
yes,
correct.
ahead,
I mean, yeah, no, I'd be delighted to. No, so indeed, as you alluded to, we were the first to get sintilimab on the NRDL in 2019, and which gives basically access to a very large market. And since then, and I think this is good for the ecosystem, the other local players have also gotten their products on the NRDL. What it basically means is, as you will all know, is there is a certain price cut associated with this. This is part of a negotiation, and coming back to Guillaume's point about what working with a Chinese company can bring to the table. Of course, these expertise and knowledge about these negotiations is something which can be quite helpful for ex-China companies, right? That the company like ours can help with that. So yes, indeed, Innovent was a pioneer. Sintilimab was the first to get on the NRDL, and it was the only one on the NRDL for until this year's negotiations, which brought in the other local players. And this is great news for patients, right? That these agents, there's a choice they reach patients, because if you think out the time where Beigene and Innovent started operating, I mean, Beigene was founded in 2010, Innovent in 2011. I mean, now in 2021, this is all we take for granted, that all these medicines are reaching the patients, right? But it just wasn't the case back then, right? So this is good news. But I think with reimbursement, I think there's a good system. There's a system in place. If you want your agent to be reimbursed, you have to accept a certain price level, but also value proposition, right? And I don't think any of us around this table has an issue with being asked to provide value for money, right? So I think that there's a good dynamic of working in China, I think, with the authorities and making sure medicines get to patients. Did you also want me to talk about, Brian, what we were looking for, or in terms of opportunities, or should we take that later?
Can we move? I just want to quickly address this question before we move. If that, it would be great. Thank you. I think we have a question regarding how we can bring the innovation from US-based innovation into China. Given the talks in China that China is going more inward looking. We all know there's a dual circulation policy that is talked about much. So I want to bring this up because my personal view is China is really want to bring up their own domestic innovation, but for the time being, it's just not up to speed. So there's also there's demand is so huge. The country is huge, the market is huge. So there's no way that the China is going to cut off foreign innovation for the time we can say foreseeable future. That's what I can tell. But if you want to add on, Guillaume, feel free.
Yeah, sure. I can try this one. So, maybe I'll speak, for from the industry perspective. So we talk about innovation. Innovation is happening everywhere in China and outside of China. So I think when we look at, collaboration opportunities on our side, we look at opportunities that are matching our corporate strategy. So we don't necessarily look at, we need to do a deal in China because we are having strong roots in China, right? We look at the quality of the science, we look at our portfolio and the synergies among our portfolio. We look at our, commercial footprint that is, again, way beyond just China. We have a commercial team in the US and we have ambition elsewhere. So it's all about your own strategy. So I don't think you will necessarily have a bias because you have strong roots in China. Of course, you have plenty of connections in China, right? And that's helping definitely the dialogue. But when you look at the collaboration, you always look at, the program, the competitive landscape, the MOA. So, from that perspective, I don't think that there would be a cut in terms of global deals or have only a certain profile of parties in the ecosystem doing deals in China. Then from the investment perspective, I think all of the funds have recently reloaded and are very well financed. And I believe that they have the ability to build companies and invest into companies on the worldwide scale. And for the same reasons that innovation is happening everywhere, I think that those funds are still investing domestically, but also in companies being outside of China. And I think there's plenty of examples of that. So maybe I'll stop here to leave some space to my colleagues.
I
Go
agree.
ahead, please, Maria.
I agree. I think we like our colleagues, we have a corporate strategy, right? And while we are opportunistic, because sometimes there's just opportunities, like if the science is really compelling or just something very innovative, we just go for it. But overall, we look for opportunities across the globe, and which fit with our needs and also can build on our capabilities. And that's of course why beyond just developing and commercializing our own pipeline in the US and Europe, the reason we have built offices, of course, also in San Francisco now in London, is of course also to be near to the local innovation, right? I spoke before about the United Kingdom as a fantastic center for innovation, but Europe in general, I mean, there is as I mentioned before, we did this deal with the University of Zurich, really a potentially best-in-class agent. So I agree with Guillaume. We just look for what the best science is. Having said that, I am hopeful, and coming back to a point I made earlier about there will be more China-China collaborations, right? There is a really lot of innovation. As I said before, Innovent, we started out primarily as a biosimilar company, but now we're moving into best-in-class, first-in-class. I mean, truly innovative molecules, and we see a lot of that in China. I mentioned before we are collaborating with Hutchison, right, which is another company, has a very strong R&D engine, interesting compounds. So this is fantastic. You'd expect it, as Guillaume said, there's a highly qualified pool of talent in China, right? They are enormously creative, and so this is fantastic. So that is moving in this direction.
Thank you, Maria. I think we are just about running out of time. Before we conclude this session, I want to give each of you just a minute to just like half a minute, 30 seconds to as a parting word. Again, I want to emphasize that for all this innovation related, China innovation related, regulatory and commercial, you can always check out Scrip and the Pink Sheet. Go ahead, from Yuehua, please. Clockwise.
Sure, of course, thank you. So actually, I really enjoyed today's interaction, and I want to say that just echo what I've mentioned at the beginning. I personally is a devotee of borderless, scientific and technology advancement. I think, yes, the geopolitical tension is there. Yes, the world has its own plan, and people perceive perhaps short-term, uncertainties and fears. But think long-term and think about what your objective is. And the same applies to everyone here. And obviously, we are here to bring the best and first-in-class, best-in-class medicines to patients. So that's our long game. Doesn't matter how we do it, but I'm sure that partnership will always be the underlying foundations for all this. So thank you, everyone.
Maria?
Yeah, from my end, to echo that, I think we are in a very positive era right now for both in terms of the development in China, innovation, bringing really novel medicines to market, benefiting patients, but also in terms of collaboration, really different collaborative models, different structures, really making sure that Chinese medicines reach the world outside China and vice versa, right? It's about two ways. And as you mentioned, Brian, really the regulatory developments, the way regulatory authorities help us as an industry to make sure we can leverage packages but from China and vice versa. I think that is a really important progress, and I think will also impact deal making. So very positive on the outlook for this industry, and you know, delighted that we have such strong players like my two colleagues here on this panel. I want to finish just with one comment. I made a comment earlier about language and the importance of China. Of course, many of us struggle with the Chinese language. So I just want from my end to thank you to James, Bobby, and Yuefan for your patience with my poor Chinese. And I promise as we do more deals together, it will be better and better every day.
On the Beigene side, very quickly, we are running out of time. We're celebrating last year our 10 years anniversary. So actually, we have accumulated quite some experience in making collaboration works, not just as striking deals, but making really and delivering value in each and every of our partnerships from many different perspectives, from clinical development, regulatory, commercial success, also manufacturing. And I think moving forward, we are going to continue to have this in our DNA, to collaborate with the best minds in the industry, and we are still eager to partner with innovative companies. So please reach out, and if not, we will find you.
Thank you very much. Another applause for distinguished panelists. Back to you, Josh.
Fantastic, thank you, Brian. And yeah, I mean, such a great discussion. I know we had some questions that we couldn't get to from Simon and from Mark and from Richie. Please do keep those questions and comments coming in. Both our panelists, but also some of their teams are on the platform, and I'm sure we can answer some of those questions. Particularly one about medtech. I'd advise everyone to join the person who asked that question. We do have a session on medtech investment where that could be asked at 2 o'clock in the health tech and digital health stream. A huge thank you to Brian and to Maria and to Yuehua, and also particularly Guillaume Vignon, and one of our partners, and supporting the one-to-one partnering, video partnering throughout the event, which is obviously a core reason for everyone being here. Please do reach out, keep connecting on that. And yeah, we're going to be live very shortly in here on the Biotech Leaders Agenda. We're going from China to East Germany, and our next focus is on Saxony and their work to build the next cell and gene therapy hub in East German region. So thank you all for joining this morning. See you shortly on the other session. Thank you.